You've probably heard someone say everyone's the main character of their own story. And that sounds nice, cinematic even. But here's the catch: your story isn't that unique. In fact, you're probably not as special as you think you are. Your view of the world is deeply biased, not by malice, but by proximity. It's easy to dismiss someone else's choices from your safe distance, and it's incredibly rare to stop and ask, how did this person get here? Not what they did, but why they did it. It's not about shame, it's about clarity. Because once you understand how biased your lens is, once you stop laughing at people from the bleachers, once you realize there's always a deeper story beneath someone's surface, you're not just more empathetic, you're more accurate. And that's the whole point. Not to be right in the debate club sense, but to be correct. To see the world not as it flatters you, but as it actually is. Everyone is a composite, a buildup, a long, chaotic recipe made from awareness they didn't ask for, genetics they didn't choose, experiences they couldn't control, and circumstances that shaped them before they could even spell the word circumstance. Every belief, every fear, every awkward laugh or sharp retort, it all has a trail of origin that points to leading back to something: a childhood, a trauma, a culture, a lack, a too much, a not enough. And yet we walk around like people just appear fully formed and stupid, as if they weren't built exactly like you were, just with different parts and different ingredients. You're not above them. You're just you, and they're just them. Both of you. The inevitable result of a very specific stack of dominoes, the recipe of you. And when you really sit with that, when you really let it sink in that every single person is just a layered sequence of inputs and echoes, it gets a little harder to stay smug. Because underneath the differences in language, style, attitude, or even morality, there's something eerily familiar about everyone else. We're all just humans trying to carry the weight of being conscious, trying to navigate memories we didn't choose, instincts that we didn't program, and circumstances that hit us like the weather. Some people carry it with humor, some carry it with anger, some carry it silently, hoping someone, anyone, might notice that they're struggling under it. But the truth is, no one got here by accident. Every single person is a story, a real one. Not a headline or a personality trait or a moment caught on video, but a full, complex, aching, breathing novel of a life stitched together from millions of moments, most of which no one will ever see. And that's what connects us, not our opinions, not our beliefs, but the fact that we're all carrying something, some more visibly than others, some more gracefully than others, but all of us built, not born ready. So when you look at someone and think, what's wrong with them? Maybe the better question is, what happened to them? And better still, what would have happened to me if I were born as them? That's not weakness. That's not softness. That is truth. And it's one of the only things that can remind you that you're not as separate or as special as your ego likes to pretend. You're not supposed to be above anyone. You're supposed to recognize yourself in everyone. Because in the end, the whole damn species is one tangled family tree trying to make sense of being alive. Now, this isn't to say that you have to tolerate stupidity or excuse willful ignorance. Empathy doesn't mean surrendering your standards, but it does mean cutting to the heart of things, not just reacting to the surface. Before you write someone off, ask questions, not to trap them, not to win, but to understand the root, the scaffolding that holds up their worldview. Because people rarely believe things for no reason. There's usually a story, a fear, a moment, a voice they trusted, a lie that makes life easier for them. And if you stop long enough to ask why, you might find the foundation is made of the same emotional materials as your own. And while you're at it, ask yourself the same questions. Why do you believe what you believe? Is it reasoned? Is it inherited? Was it chosen? Did you absorb it unconsciously? Are you standing on truth? Or are you just standing in a well decorated echo chamber? The goal isn't to become agreeable, it is to become aware. Because when you start asking better questions of others and of yourself, you stop playing the game of being right and start doing the work of being real. It is dangerously easy to build a mental fortress, one where you're always right, one where every opinion you hold is noble and every disagreement is ignorance, where the walls are made of confirmation bias and the windows only face one direction. And the longer you live inside that fortress, the more it feels like truth. But really, it's just comfort. It's armor for your ego. It keeps you warm and safe, and it keeps you small. Because when the goal is to always be right, you stop listening, you stop learning, you start treating questions like threats instead of invitations. But when the goal is to be correct, to actually understand, you become dangerous in a whole other way. Not because you shout louder, but because you can actually see. You see how complex people are. You see how easy it is to misjudge. You see how wrong you've been before and how much you might still be missing. And that kind of clarity, it takes work, it takes humility, but more than anything, it takes letting go of the need to be special and replacing it with the willingness to be honest. Because you're not as special as you think, and neither is anyone else. And somehow, that makes everything more meaningful, not less. So, how do you apply this to real life? How do you actually be open minded, not just in theory, but in the messy, unpredictable moments of real life? Start with this: assume you're wrong about something right now, today. Not everything, not your core values, just something. Something you feel certain about. And hold that uncertainty like a mirror, not a weapon. Be curious, not defensive. When you're in a conversation and you feel that little fire rise up, the need to correct, to clap back, to shut it down, pause. Ask a question instead. Not what's wrong with you, but what led you here? Not how could you believe that, but what happened that made you feel that way? And when you're the one speaking, be ready to audit yourself. Not just what you believe, but why you believe it. Interrogate your convictions like a scientist, not a preacher. Be okay with realizing some of them were inherited, absorbed, or never really tested. It doesn't make you weak, it makes you real, it makes you human. And if you want to go further, find someone you disagree with, and instead of debating them, ask them to explain themselves. Then listen, not to rebuttal, but just to understand. You don't have to agree, but if you do it right, you might realize you understand them better than they understand themselves. That's what real open mindedness is: not being neutral, not being vague. It's having the strength to hold your beliefs loosely enough to be reshaped by the truth, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's humbling, because truth doesn't need you to be right, it needs you to be willing. In this day and age, it's all too common to see people screaming into the void, defending nonsense with the certainty of profits and the fragility of glass. It's become normal, expected even, to see minds rusted shut, wrapped in contrarian pride, treating disagreement like war and questions like betrayal. We've built a culture that confuses volume with value, that rewards outrage over insight, that lifts up people who are loud over people who are right. And quietly, beneath all the noise, something is rotting, not from a lack of information, we've never had more, but from a lack of humility, a lack of curiosity, a lack of the one thing that could actually save us: the willingness to listen. But here's the good news: it doesn't have to stay this way. The fix isn't flashy, it won't go viral, but it is powerful. We be better, we get quiet, we get curious, we remember how to be human again. Ask questions, not to trap someone, but to understand them. Search for answers that might undo you a little. Let discomfort be your teacher instead of your enemy. Learn how to bend without breaking, how to stand without shouting, how to change without losing who you are. Because in the end, this world doesn't need more clever comebacks, it needs more brave people who say, maybe I'm wrong, but I want to get it right. And that's where everything begins to heal.